I lost my father and my uncle January 5th of this year in the house that I grew up in.
The citizens' inquiry was initiated after 2 lethal fires in Detroit this winter. In January, during one of the coldest weeks of the year, the 2 Allen brothers, disabled and wheelchair-bound, and their friend Lynn Greer died in their home on Dexter Avenue. 2 months later, on Bangor Street, less than 2 miles away, there was another horrific fire, claiming the lives of 3 children. Sylvia Young, the children's mother, currently faces a frame-up by the state authorities who are targeting her to distract attention from the real culprit. Both fires were the result of utility shutoffs by energy giant DTE. The Socialist Equality Party helped to initiate an inquiry into the causes of the fires and more generally the social crisis in Detroit.
The purpose of our initial hearing today is to gather information and shed light on both the events at Dexter Avenue and Bangor Street, and to draw out the real reasons for these tragedies and the many others similar to them.
When we speak about the question of shutoffs and the lack of the most basic services like electricity and light, this is the sharpest example of what has been a decades-long assault on the living standards of the working class, and conditions which have been created in Detroit today, which are unparalleled since the Great Depression of the 1930s.
And we, within a year, saw families coming in with enormous arrearages, $12,000 to $15,000 in arrearages, that they couldn't possibly pay and that they were required to pay in order to restore utility service. There is a provision that allows for a 21-day extension on a shutoff, which can be renewed twice after the first 21-day extension for medical reasons. But I have seen representatives of DTE reject doctor letters as not detailed enough.
There is a clear link between utility shutoffs and increased fire danger. Furthermore, the danger starts not when an unauthorized hookup is installed, but when heat and electricity are cut to a home.
I go to work every day without a blemish, without any type of animosities or anger or anything. I go with a smile. I work in the healthcare industry. I do my job very well. But I have lived in this property for 5 months without lights and gas. How is it that DTE can make an individual responsible for gas theft that they had no idea was going on?
If they cut you off or never start you, they're still guaranteed profit by raising the rates on people who still have.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So I think that what's actually going on is whole swaths of this city are being decommissioned, are being disconnected.
I'll be a survivor. I'm a survivor now because I have a choice. I either survive or die. You know, that's the choice we have here in Detroit. Either you find out how to pay it, survive one way or another, legally or illegally, whatever you have to do, or you freeze or die.
I'm only 22 years old, and so I guess they said that someone had used my social security number to, you know, turn on some lights and gas about 5 years ago, and that would have only made me like 13 or 14. You know, I wanted to know why doesn't DTE actually look into everything and check someone's background to actually find out and realize, well, this is a little kid.
All of this begs the question of who benefits from the policy of utility cutoffs, and I'd like to turn to that now. Here we have a slide on the CEO, Anthony Earley, who took home $4.4 million in 2007, $7 million in 2008.
DTE is a major political player in Michigan and the U.S. It has deep ties to both political parties, and in particular the Democrats, through an array of political, business, and personal relationships. Detroit Mayor Dave Bing sat on the board of DTE Energy from 1985 to 2005. That is 20 years. Bing's plans to shut down large portions of the city and force residents to relocate are in the direct interests of DTE.
It plays a toll on our hearts, pulling out dead people or pulling out any one of your pictures or any of your pets or anything, any of your valuables, it plays a toll on us also trying to save those things, your life and your property.
Can you speak about the number of fire department employees now as to what the previous levels were?
We were at 1,500 when I came on the job. We're at 800 now. The buildings have closed. There were 62 when I came on the job. There are 43 now. Open fire stations. Now there are only 43 open fire stations.
Have budget cuts and layoffs affected the fire protection ability?
We're going to do the best we can. We're going to do all we can. Your protection is still going to be the same from the Detroit Fire Department, but it's going to wear a toll on us and our bodies. That's what we risk. We risk our lives for your protection.
In other words, you're saying is that with less people, you're doing more work.
Yes, sir.
I think the sergeant at your engine company said that firefighters are now, one firefighter is doing the job of 4.
Yes, they are. Oh, that was my brother.
The sergeant was your brother, yes. In 1960, there were 35 major auto plants in and around the Motor City, including the Ford Rouge plant, GM's Cadillac plant, Dodge, Maine, employing over 110,000 workers. Today, there are at most 14 factories left. The complicity of the UAW and the other unions was actually to suppress the class struggle, to prevent the working class from fighting against the attacks. That whole outlook, that acceptance of the profit system, is what has produced the enormous disaster for the working class, epitomized in Detroit. Thank you.
Them, you run into the immediate problem that the courts, the politicians, the government, all happen to be bought and sold representatives of the very same interests who control DTE. It's not even that the government is run by or controlled by the corporation. The government is the corporation. The working class can no longer remain subordinate to the Democratic Party, no longer subordinate to the trade unions, which are doing absolutely nothing. It requires its own organizations, and this hearing itself represents a step in that direction. At the center of such a program must be the understanding, the declaration, that these basic necessities, heat, electricity, food, housing, they cannot be subordinate to the interests of profit, the interests of corporations. They must be guaranteed as social rights. And that means that they cannot no longer remain under control of private companies. They must be transformed into public utilities owned democratically in the interest of social need. Well, what is that? That is socialism.